When I first saw him standing outside his small apartment next door, shirt slightly damp from washing his bike, I didn't think much of it. Just another young neighbor who would come and go like all the others. But something about him made me look twice. Maybe it was his eyes. Curious, respectful, a bit unsure, like someone still figuring out his place in the world. Or maybe it was the way he smiled politely whenever we crossed paths in the hallway. Whatever it was, it made my otherwise quiet life feel a little less still. I had been living alone for years. My husband had left long ago, and my son had moved abroad. Silence had become a roommate. My mornings were filled with the sounds of birds and boiling kettles, my evenings with books and television shows I didn't care about. Life had settled into a kind of numb rhythm, safe, uneventful, and entirely forgettable. Until Armin moved in. Yes, that was his name. Armin. 20 years old, studying engineering, living on his own for the first time. One evening my doorbell rang. I opened the door to find him standing there, holding a small screwdriver. "Ma'am, sorry to bother you, but do you have a tape or hammer?" My curtain rod just fell down. I smiled and nodded. "Of course. Come in, I'll find it." He stood awkwardly at the entrance while I fetched the tools. His eyes scanned the living room. Quiet, clean, full of old photos and warm lights. "You live alone?" he asked hesitantly. He nodded. "Yes, for quite some time now." He didn't say much after that, just thanked me and left. But from that day on, he would wave every time he saw me. Then it became a "good morning." Then a quick "how are you?" Then one day, a soft knock at my door during a storm. "Ma'am, lights are out in my flat. Could I stay here for a bit? Just until the power's back." I let him in. We sat on opposite sides of the sofa, sipping tea in candlelight. That was the first night we really talked. He told me about his small town, his dreams of becoming an engineer, his fear of loneliness in the big city. I listened quietly, watching his words light up the dim room more than the candle did. From that night on, things began to shift. He started helping with small tasks, changing light bulbs, carrying groceries, fixing leaky taps. I started cooking extra portions of dinner by accident, and offering them to him. We would sit in the balcony some evenings, watching the sky change colors and exchanging little pieces of our lives. And then came that Sunday. I had been cleaning the house all morning, tired and frustrated. The vacuum cleaner had jammed and my back was aching. I sat down on the floor, rubbing my temples. That's when the bell rang. Armin stood there, holding a bag of fruits. "I was passing by the market. Thought you might like these," he said. I didn't speak, just gestured for him to come in. He saw the mess, the vacuum, and my tired face. And without a word, he knelt down beside me, took the machine and fixed it. "You should rest," he said gently. That was the first time he touched my hand. Not in any suggestive way. Just a soft, reassuring hold, warm and steady. Something fluttered in my chest. A kind of storm I hadn't felt in years. That evening we had dinner together for the first time. I made chicken curry. He praised it like a little child. We laughed. And when he reached across the table to hand me the salt, our fingers brushed again. Neither of us pulled away immediately. The air changed that night. Not with words, not with actions, but with presence. Over the next few weeks, that presence grew louder. He would sit closer. I would pour his tea with more care. Our conversations got deeper. Memories, regrets, fears, and quiet dreams. He never disrespected the space between us. And yet, he filled it completely. I'll never forget the night I caught him looking at me. Not like a neighbor, not like a boy looking at an older woman, but like someone who saw something I didn't even know still existed in me. A quiet kind of longing. A pull of connection that ignored time, age, and what society would whisper. I don't know how long we stayed like that on the couch, the weight of everything unsaid swirling between us. Outside, the sky had shifted into hues of orange and gold. Evening had crept in, unnoticed. Zion eventually looked up at me with those eyes, Those impossibly deep, searching eyes that made me feel like no one else had ever truly seen me before. "Alina," he whispered, his voice still hoarse from earlier. "What happens now?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. The truth. I didn't know. Everything about this felt unpredictable, dangerous, but also beautifully alive. "We just breathe," I finally said, touching the side of his face gently. "One day at a time." He nodded slowly, but I saw the flicker of worry cross his features. The age difference, the neighborhood whispers, the world's expectations, it all hovered like a silent threat. But even so, neither of us pulled away. Over the following days, life outside our small bubble continued as usual. Neighbors waved from porches, children played in the streets, and Zion's parents remained oblivious. But for us, everything had changed. He would visit often, sometimes just to talk, sometimes just to sit in silence and exist in the same space. There was no grand plan, no commitment defined, but our connection deepened with each passing moment. I found myself laughing again, laughing like I hadn't in years. His presence was like sunlight through an old, dusty window, warming the corners I had forgotten existed. One rainy afternoon, we sat on the floor near the fireplace. The storm outside rattled the windows, but inside it felt safe. Zion reached out, his fingers lightly tracing the lines on my palm. "Do you think people fall in love more than once in a lifetime?" he asked, voice barely audible over the rain. I looked at our hands, how naturally they had come together, and smiled. "Yes," I said. "Sometimes when they least expect it." He looked up at me again, and I saw something shift in his eyes, a quiet certainty. "Then I think this might be my first time." My breath caught, not because I didn't feel the same, but because hearing it out loud made it real. This wasn't a fleeting fantasy for him. It wasn't just an infatuation. It was us. Still, I worried. For him. For me. For everything this could cost. One evening after dinner, I finally voiced it. "You deserve someone younger," I said quietly. "Someone who can give you a different future." He frowned, setting down his glass of water. "Why do people always assume age defines love?" "Because the world makes us think it does," I replied. "Because people talk." "I don't care what they say," he said firmly. "What I feel with you, I've never felt with anyone else. You see me. You hear me. That's all I've ever wanted." Tears pricked my eyes. I reached across the table and took his hand. "You've changed everything for me, Zion." He stood up and came to my side, kneeling beside my chair. "Then let me stay. Let me keep changing things." And so we continued. Quietly, carefully, beautifully. Our moments were stolen. Soft smiles while watering plants in the garden, casual chats across the fence, books exchanged under the guise of neighborly kindness. But behind closed doors, our bond was something sacred. One night we sat on my rooftop. The stars were scattered like diamonds across black velvet. We lay side by side on a blanket, our fingers barely touching. "Do you think this will last?" he asked. "I don't know," I replied honestly. "But I know I'll never forget it." He turned to face me, his face inches from mine. "Neither will I." There were no promises, no declarations that would echo into forever. Just us, in that moment. And it was enough. As the months went by, our connection only grew deeper. He started writing poetry, beautiful, heartfelt lines that he never shared with anyone but me. I began painting again, inspired by the way he saw me, the way he made me feel. It wasn't a traditional love story, but it was ours. One morning, I awoke to find a small envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a handwritten note. "You made me believe in love when I thought it was too early to feel it. You made me feel loved when I thought it was too late to find it. Zion." I pressed the note to my chest and let the tears fall freely. He was everything I never knew I needed. And maybe one day the world would understand. But even if it never did, I would carry this secret, sacred chapter in my heart forever. Because love doesn't always follow the rules. Sometimes, it just finds you.